Donald Trump staged this to secure his presidency. That is asinine. You're like, okay, just like shoot me on the ear. Hopefully you just get the ear and we'll lock it in. People are wishing the shooter hadn't missed.
And he missed! We were a second away! We were a centimeter away from half of the problem being gone, and you missed!
You truly have lost the plot. And you are not the good person. I hate to tell you, you are not going to be recorded in history as being on the right side. The shooter was allegedly a victim of bullying.
He was bullied almost every day.
There's no orphans after 21, and it's basically once you become an adult, you are accountable for your actions. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Chatting with Candice. I'm your host, Candice Horbacz. We are doing a lovely solo episode today, short and sweet. And before we hop into that, I wanted to do some big thank yous. First, I wanted to start off with some people that have bought me cups of coffee recently. I want to say thank you so much to James M., Andrew, Adder X a couple of times, Chase, R. Rick S., and Adder X again, thank you so much for the cups of coffee. If you want to shout out or if you just want to contribute to the podcast, you can go to chattingwithcandice.com and click that link that says buy me a coffee. It goes right back into the podcast. As you've been seeing, we've been doing a lot more in person, so I greatly appreciate it. And I couldn't do this without you guys. And then I wanted to say a few shout outs for our Patreon members. I want to say thank you to Alan F., Brian Duff, Richard Dauber, Rich, and Rufus. Thank you so much for being Patreon members. And again, if you want to support the podcast, you can go to chattingwithcandice.com and click that link that says Patreon. I release the episodes early there. I give you little sneak peeks at who's coming on, and you have the chance to ask our guests some questions. We are going to start posting some extra content on there as well. I'm just trying to figure out how much and how often that's going to be before I promise that. But yeah, Patreon's another great way to support the show. And I think that is all of our housekeeping for this episode. We have had a whirlwind of a past few days, and unless you are living under a rock, then you would have seen the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump, and you would have also seen how ridiculous the media coverage was of it. And some people are saying, with how skeptical we are being of the media, that they didn't want to make assumptions and then have to retract and edit, so they wanted to play it safe. But maybe that would have been true for a few headlines, but every single headline was kind of running around the actual situation and saying that he had fallen or Secret Service had interrupted, but none of them wanted to say that there was a shooter or an assassination attempt. And even the ones that are saying shooter, that term is being used what seems deliberately instead of the very evil and obvious thing that it was, which is they tried to kill a former president. When it comes to the accountability of this, I don't like blaming anyone but the person that acted. And I think that there's a lot of people that are blaming the media right now, and they're saying that they should be held responsible for this young man's really deranged actions. But we've seen that on the other side as well, where people try to blame people on the right, or specifically Donald Trump, when it comes to January 6th. And they're like, well, his rhetoric is what led us here. His divisiveness is what led us here. I like to place blame in the individuals because I believe in autonomy, and I don't think that casting that off onto anyone else is fair or it's right. And I think it becomes a very slippery slope. Some of the criticism when it comes to the mainstream media outlets and where the blame is being suggested is by calling him Hitler, a threat to democracy, a dictator, someone who needs to be stopped, a threat to national security, and an enemy of the state. Now, while all of those things seem super hyperbolic and obviously not true, I think when you have that repeated enough, it's very easy to get into a place where you feel like the person is a genuine threat to your livelihood, the existence of the country, and that maybe you have to take matters into your own hands if something or someone's not changing. Where is the line between free speech and the media's obligation to tell the truth to people, and journalists' commitment to the truth that used to be a standard that seems to have kind of gone extinct? I don't know. That is for much smarter people than myself to decide, but I think that the decentralization of information via Substack and individual journalism is going to solve that problem until eventually I think you're going to start seeing these groups kind of hodgepodge together and then end up being the new legacy media. And then it'll probably get too big again and pop and get decentralized again. But the assassination attempt sure did seem to bring a lot of people that were on the fence into full-blown support for Donald Trump. I don't know if that's just my algorithm or if that is what you're seeing too. Let me know. I saw Brett Weinstein make his post. I reposted it. I sent it around to a bunch of other people. I've been saying something very similar. I know a lot of people have had the same thought. It's unity is what matters right now, and anyone who's pushing divisiveness just needs to fuck off, because this is the problem right now. Is this othering and thinking the other person is an existential threat to democracy in your life and your country. I think we need to come together. That ticket would have been awesome, but we know that Trump now picked his new VP, which is, I don't even know this person. Marianne Williamson, who I'm not a big fan of. I've got some friends that are very big supporters. I don't understand how. She tweeted, JD Vance is Trump's choice for VP. His views on women are particularly interesting. We are effectively run in this country by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and their choices that they've made. So they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. Unquote. Lovely, says Marianne Williamson. I retweeted it, and she's not being treated kindly in the comments. There seems to be a lot of people that are anti-natalist, anti-family, don't want to conserve anything, miserable, that are making a lot of laws and policies that are going to affect future generations. If you don't have children, and you particularly don't believe in having families and you think that that is a threat to the climate, I don't know that you should be in a position that is going to impact said future generations. The way that you view life after you become a parent is profoundly different. The way that you think is profoundly different. And it's not to say that you have to have kids to be in a leadership position, but I do think that there should be more people that do have families than that don't, because you need to be able to relate to something that goes way beyond your single, maybe 80 to 100 years. You're thinking about your great grandchildren and how things are going to affect them. And then the things that you worry about are profoundly different. Some things become so small, and other things that seemed to not be an issue become very pressing. So, I mean, I don't disagree with that quote, but again, I don't know a lot about him, but I retweeted it and I thought it was funny. And I just like to stir the pot a little bit. I wanted to get into Melania Trump's statement because I think it's really easy to forget that we're people at the end of the day. And we can see this caricature, especially when someone is really polarizing like Donald Trump, and you can forget that he's a husband, you can forget that he's a father, you can forget that he's a grandfather, and that he's a person. And I think that she did a really good job at trying to remind everyone about what truly matters. I'm thinking of you now, my fellow Americans. We have always been a unique union. America, the fabric of a gentle nation, is tattered, but our courage and common sense must ascend, bring us back together as one. When I watched the violent bullet strike my husband, Donald, I realized my life and Barron's life were on the brink of devastating change. I am grateful to the brave security service agents and law enforcement officials who risked their own lives to protect my husband, to the families of the innocent victims who are now suffering from this heinous act. I humbly offer my sincerest sympathy. I love that so much. I think that was so beautiful. She gets a lot of shit, and I think it's because she is so pretty, and everyone thinks you can't be pretty and smart at the same time. I think she speaks half a dozen languages, maybe more. That was a very human response, and I really appreciated it. And I want more people to do stuff like that. I want to see people bringing humanity forward and stop with the divisiveness, because that's just going to get us into more of these really awful situations. What the left is saying. So one of the conspiracies going around, and usually those are reserved for the right, is that Donald Trump staged this to secure his presidency. That is asinine. You're like, okay, just like shoot me on the ear. Hopefully you just get the ear and we'll lock it in. I think that's nonsense. I don't even want to entertain that one. People are wishing the shooter hadn't missed.
You're telling me somebody finally had the balls to bring a pew-pew, and he missed! We were a second away! We were a centimeter away from half of the problem being gone, and you missed!
How do you get to the point where there's someone you don't even know personally, someone you've never met personally, or you just have this idea of, and you wish that they just got shot in the face in front of a crowd, including their loved ones, their family members? You truly have lost the plot, and you are not the good person. I hate to tell you, but that flag of virtue you're trying to wave around, it's not white, and you are not going to be recorded in history as being on the right side. And most of the time, I can't say that definitively about anything, because who knows 100 years, 200 years from now. But if you're calling for the assassination of somebody, you are not the good guy. One thing that I've hated online is Destiny is another one of these people where it seems that the incident has kind of broken him. I love Destiny. I think that he is brilliant. He's fast, he's sharp, he's articulate, he is well studied. He's gotten into it with a lot of people on Twitter. I think his page might even be demonetized, or at least it's not approved for advertisers anymore after a bunch of tweets that he has been posting. And again, it's kind of celebrating the violence and then also mocking the man that was killed, and it's kind of suggesting if anyone has criticism for him or if they're insulted, that he would buy that, to DM him, and he would buy them a ticket to a Trump rally. And I know that he's obviously in the thick of it and emotions are running high, but he's better than that. And I'm hoping that when things calm down, maybe he'll have a change of mind, because I don't think that the answer is violence. There are times, right? There are times when war is necessary or a revolution is necessary. Our country was founded on a revolution. It's not that I'm a pacifist, but there are times where things are appropriate and necessary. This was not one of them. I think everyone's talking about Trump derangement syndrome, and unfortunately, I guess it can get the best of us. But again, when things calm down and emotions stop running so high, maybe things will take a turn. There isn't a lot of discussion around bullying, mental health, or gun control following this assassination attempt. There are some people that are wondering if Donald Trump is going to change his position on the Second Amendment. I don't see that happening. I support the Second Amendment. My family supports the Second Amendment. We are gun owners. I don't think that changes. I think that actually creates more of a justification as to why it's important that you're able to protect yourself. Principles are only principles if they hold fast. And if you waver when things get tough or when you're challenged, I don't think that that was a principle to begin with. So we'll see. I highly doubt I see him talking about changing the Second Amendment or creating stricter gun laws. I'm not sure. What's interesting is that the shooter was part of a gun club, a rifle club, and it was not abnormal for him to take the rifle out to go shooting. So his dad seemed to be pretty surprised when he found out what the gun was actually being used for. The shooter was allegedly a victim of bullying for his appearance, just his clothes. There was a young man that talked on an interview about going to high school with him and how he was kind of relentlessly bullied.
He was bullied almost every day.
In what way? Can you explain?
I mean, he would sit alone at lunch. I mean, he was just an outcast, and you know how kids are nowadays, so they're going to see someone like that, and they're going to target him because they think it's funny or whatever. So it's the best way I can describe it. And it's honestly kind of sad. Like, I don't want to say this is what provoked it, but you never know.
Yeah. You said he was a loner?
Yeah. I want to say he was a loner more because he was quiet, but like he was just bullied. Like he was bullied so much. This
one is so hard because there's this quote that says there's no orphans after 21. And it's basically, once you become an adult, you are accountable for your actions. You're not responsible for abuse, trauma, neglect, bullying, any of that as you were growing up as a kid. Obviously, that is not your fault, but what you do with it as an adult is. And if you're not mentally stable, it can be impossible to get yourself out of that. But how do the parents not see that he's being bullied and that there are rifts in attachment and socialization and that something is off? Because someone that is mentally stable is not doing this. They're not committing this awful act of violence. So I don't know what is the conversation around bullying? What is the conversation around having parents that are fucking parenting and paying attention to your kid? I don't think that this comes out of nowhere. I think there was probably a million telltale signs that this person was not going to be okay or that this person was a threat. So we have a few tweets that came in from some political pundits, talking heads, and congressmen. What I find really interesting is that the left has always been the side of empathy and compassion, and to a fault. But when it comes to violence against the others, the other side, the wrong side, the bad guys, then I guess it's okay. Then we don't have thoughts and prayers. We don't have sympathy. We don't have humanity, honestly. And AOC leaves us with a zinger. So she's responding to Jake Tapper, and he says, a senior House Democrat tells Axios, we've all resigned ourselves to a second Trump presidency. AOC responds, if you're a senior Democrat that feels this way, you should absolutely retire and make space for leadership that refuses to resign themselves to fascism. What are you talking about, you pretty little idiot? This idea that because you're blue, it's like blue no matter who, and you're not supposed to be bipartisan. The whole purpose of both of these sides is to keep each other in a checks and balances, and it's actually supposed to be complementary. It's not supposed to be this constant knockout, drag out fight. That's just, and what is she talking about with fascism? So I don't have the tweet in front of me, but Marjorie Taylor Greene, who never disappoints, was one of the people that was leaning into the divisiveness following the assassination attempt and calling the left all pedophiles. You can find the tweet for yourself. That's not helping anyone either. So I think we need to stop with over-identifying with these colors, red and blue, and these parties that truly don't give a shit about any of us, and just find somebody who's just anti-establishment and wants to take all of this down, like all of this divisiveness down, take down whoever basically let that shooter onto the building. Because do your own research, watch all of the videos, watch professional Green Berets and special ops men talk about this. It seems pretty much impossible that this was like how did he get there? It's a very small venue. 400 feet away. I think it was 1.2 meters. It just that you had all these videos of people pointing to him saying like, look at that guy on the roof, and nothing is happening. So something seems to be afoot. I really wish that RFK and Donald were on the ticket together, but unless we don't get to everything we want, I don't know what's going to happen. I know I bought chickens. I don't know why I think that's going to help, because they're hard to keep alive when things are okay. They'll definitely die if something is not. But I bought chickens. We bought a bunch of dried food. We loaded up on ammo. We've got a plan. I don't know. That's all I felt like I had to do something to make all of this feel settled. It doesn't. And I think it's only going to get worse as we get closer to November. So try to be the sane one in a group of divisive crazies. Try to find the beauty in humanity. Try to find unity. And don't support things that are tearing us apart. That's all we can do, is just like be the leader, be the uniter, and stop the divisiveness, because it starts with one person, and hopefully that will influence and have a ripple effect, because the Marjorie Taylor Greenes and the AOCs of the world need to quit their jobs. They need to have someone give them a hug, because clearly they're a bully, and hurt people. So I'm so sorry that you both were hurt, but you both need to stop because you're not doing anyone a service. You're tearing the country apart. Well, that's it for this solo episode. I feel like that was interesting. We're gonna do more of these. I'm gonna get better, I promise. Thanks for hanging in there with me, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, everybody.